Like that.
And not in our comfort zone. Pain becomes comfortable.
Let me play my part.
Check 2, hey.
Like, is that real? Did that happen? Like,
The structure of your brain actually changes.
and do you still feel that every day?
And then it got time for guitars.
Eating disorder, like
I didn't want to die,
tendencies.
but I didn't want to live.
A helpless little girl.
You gotta go in the hospital.
You feel powerless because the body has a fear reaction.
The opportunity to empower.
No one can take away my power.
I won't take myself out.
Artists that are true like that, those are the ones that tend
Like
to
a sin.
create change.
I wanted to ask you about this because in the Me Too movement, I get frustrated when people are doing, some kind of someone's got a platform, there's a big crowd, and someone has the time and the platform and the voice to speak, and they say, finally, women are stepping up, and I just want to kind of my head drops because I think, all the guys out there who are carrying something they don't know how to share with anyone, and here they are being excluded when there's finally a movement, finally a group that might listen, and they're being told, well, not you though, it's not for you. And I just wonder, that's gotta sting.
It's got to sting in a lot of ways. I thought about that, and it in some ways, I don't know to what degree it perpetrates old behaviors in men, I think, because these behaviors are passed down from generation to generation, parent to parent, or what they see in public school. And I think, we're taught what masculinity is through magazines, just as women are taught, and but it's kept very silent, and it's not hidden by any means, especially to ladies. But we're pretty predictable, us guys, as far as I'm concerned.
Pretty consistent.
Pretty consistent.
Well, the people talk a lot about the pressure on women to look a certain way, but they don't talk as much about the pressure for masculinity.
Yeah.
And like you said, having experiences disclosing and one of them being negative, and having other people wonder, I went through this or that, are people going to think I'm gay or something like that? It's an immediate attack on the masculinity for him to just say, this happened to me, even if he was a kid.
Absolutely. Well, and then I think it forces the child to start asking himself, am I gay? And what makes somebody, and these questions all of a sudden are, it's not like it's taught in school, of course, and there's no real classes on this, to determine how to deal with an aftermath of a trauma, or determine, how you're feeling about what you've seen. I mean, even the person who hasn't gone through the trauma, but maybe is a friend or was there when it happened.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Well, that's interesting. When you just said there's no class for dealing with trauma, I wonder, you and I aren't professors, but we're both passionate about the subject matter. We both care about people who've dealt with it. If there were a class, someone tells you XYZ just happened to me, this is what you don't do, what would you say?
Ooh, it's the first time I've been posed with that one. Let me see if I got
Is that too much?
No, not at all. Let me see if I can paraphrase the question correctly. I say if there was a class on what to say or how to act after a trauma has happened.
Someone comes to you and says that it happened to them, okay, well, don't do this, don't do that, because it's a lot of the things that people...
Here's what not to do.
Yeah, as a starting point.
Please don't deny it.
Wow.
Please don't deny it. Just say something happened. Something really happened.
Yeah.
If you can't speak about it fully right then and there, sometimes we can build to that. Maybe you're not with somebody you trust, but please just say something happened bad.
Yeah.
Don't deny that it happened.
You mean for the survivor?
Yeah, the survivor. If I understood the question correctly,
and for the person listening.
Yeah, just say that something happened, something bad happened. If you can't speak about it entirely, if you're uncomfortable or embarrassed, if you feel embarrassed, or if you feel scared or fearful, or if you're for someone to retaliate, there is nothing anybody can do to you worse than one can do to themselves by holding it in.
That's interesting. So you feel like maybe the fear of retaliation itself and the holding it in is worse damage than whatever someone might be threatening with. But people threaten with someone's life.
Yeah.
You know? There's plenty of people,
and-
I'll kill
and-
you, blah, blah, blah.
You know, and I have no doubt for the folks that may be listening that actually it has happened with. You know, I'm not denying that something bad might have happened either. There's people that I believe have gone through traumas possibly for their whole teenage life.
Yeah.
And things are built into the DNA at this point, you know, kind of deal. I think by somebody who's turning 50 and has held it in this long, speaking from my own experience, that holding it in, and not just holding it in, but the ways I've held it in.
Yeah.
Where I've turned to narcotics and drinking. And I look back upon the relationships that weren't healthy and what my part in that was. And does it have any some branches that reach back to what had happened to me, and does that affect me? Absolutely.
Like not feeling like you deserve better people in your life, or what do you mean?
That there's been some degree of that. I've chosen certain people that things may not last with, or I have, instead of bonding through positivities, I bonded through flaws. I've bonded where now I can feel comfortable in my own skin around someone.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point. You talk about bonding by flaws. There's a degree to which, like, there's a lot of link between like PTSD and eating disorders and addiction, and they happen to the same person a lot of the time. And eating disorders can be addictive. And there's, to some degree, it's like, okay, this person has the same problems as me. Maybe they'll understand me. But then at the same time, are they dealing with it in a darker way, or are they dealing with it in a positive way? And do people get attracted to the damage and someone else who might help them with their self-destruction? Basically enablers, I guess I'm saying.
Well, the way I'm hearing that too, that gets into a really interesting subject matter for myself, because I tend to do what I just flow charts on different unhealthy behaviors within myself growing up. Just so I could turn the microscope on myself. And when we start looking at darker ways to deal with things, well, you got classics where we have gotten so used to the pain and drama that's what we've gotten used to. That's what we've gotten used to, our way of thinking and our way of processing. And to use a healthier approach also means dealing with things head on.
Yeah.
And not in our comfort zone. Where pain becomes comfortable. And I can speak about that personally. Pain became extremely comfortable for me. I became so used to being, let's say if it's on a scale of -0 and I was at -10, I get to -4 and I just keep it at that point. And I'm not being specific in the ways I would do that, but I don't know, dating unhealthy women, doing narcotics, desensitizing myself to pretty much everything around me.
Yeah.
While at the same time.
I'm going to kill this window because they're trained.
Yep. Should we take a minute?
If you want.
Yeah, let's just take 2 minutes. I'm going to step outside. Okay.
Deliberately holding yourself back from healing and getting to the point where you're more comfortable in pain than not in pain. Did I get that right?
I would go, yeah, you hit it right on the head. I had many different thought processes on this growing up. One, I would say I was coming down from a night of doing narcotics. As somebody who does narcotics knows that it tells all your pleasure centers to quit making the chemical in your brain to make you feel good, happy. And then when the drug wears off, the chemical isn't being made yet. And so you hit a massive amount of depression. I would use that as a way to feel pain. I'd tell myself I'm feeling pain now. I'd think about things that weren't pleasant. And I would be really honest with myself about it. Why? Because, well, that's basically all I had. I felt so bad about myself. I said, I might as well at least be honest. Maybe not out loud, but inside my own head. Yeah. I would deal with things very, very unhealthy. If there are some folks I've seen along the way in life that fall into the system where, and this will go on. If you've had a bad experience with a doctor or with the court system or a police officer, and that has deterred you from speaking up or speaking out, please don't overcome that. Overcome that by any means necessary. I've had some experiences where sharing my story with one particular doctor went backfired. Not backfired, but I don't exactly remember the words that were said, but I was really made to feel like, I had no support.
Right.
And no support involved.
And you're reaching out to a professional and getting shut down.
And it could be that they weren't used to hearing this from boys.
Yeah.
Mostly maybe women. I'm not sure. It's a good question to ask for later. And this is a very touchy subject to get into, where one has a responsibility to themselves as well. I speak to the people out there that are still able to remain proactive, haven't fallen into depression so much that they cannot move. There is a responsibility not to flip the script and use your ailment as a calling card or as a way out of something, or as there can be that darkness, or that you you are so used to dealing with drama and getting help from somebody in different ways. You're not dealing with the actual problem, but the way you're acting out in it, and by becoming very needy, or you become dependent on a man or a woman to take care of you, or that we know you're a good person, but yet there is that dark, unhealthy way of manipulating oneself. Why do I say this? Because that's what I did. I was manipulating my own self to, one, I'm going to stay strong and above this, but at the same time, maybe I deserve some help by trying to stay strong. I would give myself all kinds of different dark justifications on doing some really unhealthy behaviors. I don't know if that touches on...
No, that makes a lot of sense. I know someone who works in addiction, and she's concerned that people can get addicted to treatment.
Yep.
And it's at the point where they never want to stand on their own 2 feet. And I don't know if it's the attention, like the, hey, look at me, I'm getting better. And for a minute, they're in the spotlight. All eyes are on them. And again, it comes back to the loneliness. Like, is treatment a healthy antidote for isolation and loneliness? Because you can't have that be your medicine. You have to learn to live.
Well, just like somebody who anorexic, I believe, throws up quite a bit. Is that correct?
That's bulimia.
Bulimia, thank you. Bulimia.
So just like someone
it's just like somebody who's suffering, say, from hiding.
Yeah.
That they're all of a sudden people become, you adapt just like a virus adapts to a new strain. You come up with a vaccination, meaning we now have figured out what your process is, and now we can catch you before you do it, or try to monitor you. The trauma, the person going through the trauma, also comes up with new methods to hide, and to keep some distance from the actual core problem that's going on and facing it. I mean, I know what we're talking about can branch off to different
absolutely
subjects too, but things that I do think about a lot, that I think just some of the oddly enough, some of the most creative and media and music and arts and painters, poets seem to have gone through some sort of. But you were talking about like where people might like say, "Look at me, I'm better." I think that was what you said. It reminded me of
getting addicted to treatment.
Yeah, getting addicted to treatment. There's those celebrities, classic thing you'll see comedians talking about, where it's like, I cheated on my wife, and I left my 4-year-old in the swimming pool alone. But look, I'm out of treatment. Thumbs up.
God.
Thumbs up for me.
That's horrible.
But I see it, and it's become, I think some of the things we're hitting on is trends. Certain programming and trends that have installed of how we're actually dealing with these traumas and people going through it. And what we're really hitting on is how not only how are we dealing with it, but how our wiring has gotten messed up in our head.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the hardest one to admit. I can speak for me, but I can imagine if I'm going through it, there's got to be thousands of others going, really? I got all these problems.
Well, you talked about in the criminal justice system people pretending. And I saw a Facebook post a while ago of someone just exasperated saying, stop, calling out and using your undiagnosed mental illness as an excuse for this, that, and the other. You don't know what it's really like to have these problems. And I just wonder, as someone who's dealing with the real stuff, the real heavy addiction to the heavy drugs and the memories and everything you've dealt with PTSD and all those sorts of things, what it must be like to know that even one person out there in the world would fake something like that.
That's always a tough and sensitive matter. The only way I can look at it is when I went through inpatient treatment, I went through it twice. I went through one very hardcore two bouts with dealing with sobriety, and it was made apparent to me that only 3, maybe 10, up to 10 now, but back when I went, 3% had survived after a year in sobriety. 3% made it.
Wow.
So I can imagine what the other 97% is doing, or what's going on in their head. And I think that's what we touched upon. I have a little tough time trying to say, oddly enough, one of my favorite artists, Sly Stone, used to talk about having a responsibility to take care of yourself. You can make it if you try. Of course, succumb to losing everything because of drugs.
Sly Stone, the anti-drug crusader.
Right, but well, not anti-drug, but
You
more
lost me
like
for a minute.
he would say, you have a responsibility to take care of it. You can't, and he came in that part where you can only blame the government and blame society and blame things so much for how you end up. There is some sort of responsibility to for one to reach out or to in any way necessary, and I that's I think where we're getting at a lot too is not just reaching out, but how we can help people to feel better about reaching out. May not happen that day, but man, did I get you 50% further towards reaching out, or how do we not backtrack, or I'm just kind of.
No, that makes sense. All right, so we talked about some of the darker places. Obviously, you've been with heavy drug addiction and problems with the criminal justice system when you were a kid, and then the PTSD and everything. At some point in your life, you decided you wanted something better, and you got yourself clean. What was that inspiration, and what's it been like fighting through that?
Okay, that immediately comes to my mind that. A sign that says, if you can't help yourself, who can? And it wasn't meant to be rhetorical. It was meant to be, who really can help you? I think at that time, when I hit my last bout, or when I went into sobriety this past time, I should say, I was at rock bottom emotionally. Things had become so redundant, and I was just really sick of my own thinking. I was fortunate enough to still have another side to me that was regularly healthy, but that was the dormant side. Mm-hmm. The side that was active was the dark side. And for that to happen, I had to reach out. I could not do it by myself. I needed to have some sort of supervision, be accountable. I needed a purpose. And at the time, my purpose was, I want to, be a better human being. I don't want my parents to see me like this. I want to make music. I want to help people ultimately, which is why I really wanted to make music to begin with. I can make music on anything, a log if I need to. I wanted to transmit some frequencies that can make people feel comfortable, and feel like being a human being. We see everybody equally, hopefully, through the vibration of music. Maybe change some thought process slowly but surely. And that was a big part of my attraction to being with you, Teresa, was part of that. Like, not only was I wanted to be there for Kelly, but I wanted to, if invited, I wanted to help with damage control, so to speak,
Damage.
and maybe, and I knew in my heart by helping someone else that I was going to help myself, either through osmosis or through direct help, which I've had from you, which thank the spirits, in multiple ways. Not we've just helped each other, and in ways that no material or words could say.
Absolutely. Just seeing someone in a completely different way, but at their own rock bottom, as I was hitting my rock bottom, and in our own, again, different but kind of parallel tracks. Like, we can check in with each other and be like, hey, how bad is it today? And
and it's real. It's
real, man. It's not good today.
It gets,
And not judge each other, just be like, this is just one of those where my goal today is to see the sun come up tomorrow, and I can't hold myself to anything higher. I got nothing in the tank. Those are a lot of days like that.
And that's honest. It's being real, and it's painful to say that. However, on the positives, I started using different sayings like, well, I can either party and not paying my bills and not have anywhere to live, or I can deal with my problems, as painful as they are.
Yeah.
Sometimes even more painful than the actual,
Yeah.
But a different kind of pain, much cleaner. It's not you're not hanging with the devil, so to speak.
Yeah. And you're not going to wake up in a dumpster with a.
And forgive me, I don't subscribe to any organized religion except for love for everybody. Well, I'm kind of a Jew-boo, but
I don't know what that is.
Jewish Buddhist. But
Jew-boo? Wait. I can't let that slide. Is that real?
It's real.
There's more than one Jew-boo?
Yeah.
Who else?
It's like it's a formula. Like, you got Jews for Jesus, Messianic Jews. You got Jewish Buddhists who still subscribe to a lot of the history and things of our Jewish lineage, but don't necessarily subscribe to the dogmatic laws of Judaism. I'm not going to speak for every faction out there. I can only speak for my interpretation of what I've read. I'm not part of any particular organization or even one person. I subscribe to different philosophies and ideas, and I use what feels good and feels right for me to do that. So the reason I gave you a footnote on that was saying the word devil can mean some people, well, this guy's religious, and I just meant that as an analogy.
No, it's definitely, there's the pain of facing your real problems, and there's the pain of running away from them and everything that's going to come with that.
Right,
like,
exactly.
I was going to ask you, like, okay, the last lyric on the album, which is the last thing she ever sang, besides singing to the dogs all the time.
Yeah.
But the last thing she ever sang was, I'm done running away from this. So I'm curious, if I drop that lyric on you, where does that hit? What does that mean to you?
It means to me that I'm done doing what it takes to avoid whatever's in front of me. I'm going to break down these walls by whatever means necessary. I'm just, I can only learn more about that through you, actually, what you might have meant, but how I digested it was, I'm done. It doesn't mean I'm bottom out, but I have. But, because it's different I think, it might be a different kind of bottom for different traumas. That I can't speak about.
Yeah.
But I'm done running away from this. I'm done living in the pain of running. I'm done living with all the masks I have to wear. I'm done living in the denial, the shield of denial. It is no longer protecting me. It is hurting me.
Wow.
And that is a big part of, what I've heard from Kelly, what I've gotten from the foundation, and why I'm a part of it.
Yeah.
Is to,
A big part. You took all those tickets on the launch night.
Yeah, that was. Oh man, I tell you what. For folks that haven't been out to these events, they're one of a kind. If you can't make it out to a beautiful festival where everybody could hold hands and everybody's one, come to one of these where it's a different kind of hand holding. It's a different type of reassurance. It's a different type of tree hugging. It's meant for everybody, and everybody is absolutely loved, and we are no different than anybody else just because of what happened to us or how we may be even dealing with it.
That's amazing. Do you have a favorite memory from the launch night? So just to give people context, so hopefully people are listening to this all over the world and have no idea what I'm talking about. So when we launched the Kelly Nicole Foundation publicly, we had an event, and that was the date of the album release and the first time screening the documentary publicly, which has a lot of music from the album. And this whole music-based nonprofit inspired by her music, where her album and merch sales literally fund the foundation, that was the beginning of all that. It was June 19th, 2017. And Joshua was there volunteering from morning till night. And I remember calling and saying, man, I need some help. Like, I need some muscle this day, and it's going to be a long day.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, pick me up at 8. I picked you up at 8 in the morning. I dropped you off at your apartment 1 in the morning.
Oh, was it 1?
It was 1. Like, that.
Really?
That's when I'm talking about this guy's legit. I'm talking about Josh Davis is legit.
That was.
Do you remember?
I remember. Look at all these people that came out of the woodwork. I mean, I knew a lot of the names of some of the heavyweight musicians. Lori Dawkin. I saw other people coming together, these families coming together. But I could feel, I think one of the biggest things is it was that kind of event where everything was really raw, emotionally. And I could feel everybody's individually. And I felt like really good by just keeping a smile on my face and saying, hey man, I'm so glad you made it. I saw people that have gone through like health issues make it out there, like Gino. And,
wow.
And I'm thinking about the memorial. That was a memorial, actually. We're talking Hell's Kitchen right now.
Yeah.
The movie, the things that you had to say, there was a lot of quality.
Thank you.
A quality involved, and what people had to say and the substance they brought with them. And quite frankly, I felt more at home
Really?
with people by just being, if nobody knew any of my story, but if somebody would ask or say, hey, can you relate to this? I'd be like, yes, I can.
Yeah.
And now because of being involved in the foundation and even doing this, I've started to tell more people.
Really?
My roommate now knows. My mom knows more. I honestly have told more people, and I can't remember who, which is okay with me.
So you're getting to the point where, I don't want to put words in your mouth. You're getting to the point where there's less shame, there's less fear, there's less, okay, I'm going to be treated like a freak.
Yeah, probably because I'm 50, I'm less, it's taken me this long to, I'm dropping my guard.
It should be an age where you stop giving a fuck, shouldn't
pretty
it?
much.
I mean, what?
Pretty much is what I'm trying not to say that, but
you gotta do
I
something
just
for
don't
the
care.
big 5-0.
And I'm tired of suffering from it. I've had some beautiful relationships with women, but I do know that in my past that there's been some things that probably could have been avoided or handled better had I been in a better place about this, about my trauma.
Well, you talked about, and we don't have to talk about this if you don't want to, but when you were hanging out with Kel, just for people who aren't aware, she's a very attractive person, and basically just about everywhere she went, people were interested in stuff. And you had, and I didn't ask you, did you like her in that way? But you had said, oh, whatever, she was cute and all that. And you said that you had stayed away from her because you were using, and you knew that it would have been bad for her.
Yep.
You remember that?
Yep. I remember that at a time we were actually hanging out a lot, and I started to get into some pretty heavy. I had, not innocently, but I had tried for the first time some pretty heavy-duty narcotics that there was no coming back from after that. And I distanced myself completely, so I didn't bring... Kelly's would have read it. And
she's a sharp girl.
And I was embarrassed. And I didn't want to. Anytime I'm in front of her, it had to be real or nothing at all.
Wow.
And so that's something. And she brought that to Mike. She never said anything like that to me. It's just immediately we had a connection. She was sharing her intimates about relationships. She was coming out of a relationship at the time.
She was in breakup mode.
Yeah, and I was the arm. And I was fortunate enough. She'd give me a ride home almost every night. So like 5-6 days a week, we were talking.
She blasting Tool the whole time. You had to shout
well,
at
a few different things. Well, we were in the Z28 or the Camaro or her kit car or whatever she had at the time.
She had a lot of cars.
Yeah, those that cool sports car she had.
Trans Am.
Yeah, Trans Am. It was
She used to talk about that thing.
Black Trans Am. That's it. The kit car. Yeah. So, so, yeah, I did distance myself. Not just from her, but I remember that specifically detail.
Wow.
I remember visions of what I thought about when I did that too.
That's amazing to me that even as you're going into that rabbit hole, you're thinking who this is going to hurt. Because she did that with her eating disorder. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you.
Well, make no mistake, there was some people I hurt along the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to seem like I was that honorable a guy.
No, but you were conscious of it. You were trying
with her,
at the same time to do damage control.
Yeah, with her, especially with, there were certain close friends that I hurt along the way that I've been fortunate enough to most of them make amends to.
Yeah.
Maybe some odd way I got a chance to make amends by helping. I never thought about that till now. She would have never known it, and she probably would say you had no amends to make up to.
She's a sweet person.
But yeah, she might have just been being sweet too, and
No, I mean she saw the best. I didn't mean it like she wouldn't say what she meant. I meant in her heart, she sees the good in everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
It's her first wedding vow to me. Speaking of people being interested in her, well, I'm interested. And her first vow is I vow to always notice the positive things you do, and never focus on the negative.
No.
And I'm like, God, she's that way with everyone.
Yeah.
That's so sweet of her.
Yeah. It really is. And it just, it gives me inspiration and hence what I hope the foundation does, because it's inspiration to be sweet to themselves. Be good to you more than anybody else. Be good to yourself. Be sweet to yourself, and be forgiving of yourself. That's the biggest part, I think, not just from not giving a fuck about saying it to anybody, but I need to start being better to myself and giving myself permission to go, hey, that, you're 50 now, brother. Even if I was 20 and it happened at 7, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you're at a point where, do you really want to keep letting this hurt you? Do you want, can I help somebody else out at the same time? What can we do?
How has it affected your recovery to see other people's lives be cut short?
Things have gone surprisingly well in the area of being able to really hold value in some things. And I say some things in life and my friends and in that respect. And this is why I ask the young folks to reach out so much. Because, to be perfectly honest, there's a part of me that from not dealing with this, not dealing with a few other things that correlate, chances are if one trauma has happened, there's probably some other traumas that have happened later, such as drugs. I mean, there is a stigma that goes along with, they say, you can edit this out, a lot of dancers were abused in the erotic gentlemen's clubs. Oh. Well, there's a truth to that. Yeah. And we don't want to talk, nobody wants to say it, but there's a truth to where not everybody becomes a male or a female dancer or goes out and becomes a drug addict, but there's a lot of us that have.
Yeah.
And have turned to the dark side, whatever things are. And what I'm saying, I'm going to digress, but what I'm saying is please, if, now is the time if you can, because there's a part of me that still has trouble wrapping myself around hope. I was born for optimism, but because of not dealing with things early on, there's a part of me that still feels like maybe it's just being an only child too. It could be some natural things, I'm not sure. But I still have to, sometimes it's an effort to to humble myself and get on my knees and pray to whatever spirit you believe in. You know, honestly, I end up washing my toilets because I feel like you get real humble when you're washing toilets. It's true.
It's pretty humbling.
I mean, this sounds really weird, but if I feel too caught up in myself, I start like washing bathtubs and things because I feel like, you know, it's a way to humble myself. But my point being is, by getting sober and by dealing with things and reaching out, I have shown that I have to. The biggest part about the insecurity of what had happened is self-worth.
Yeah. My
My self-worth had dropped to 0, -4. I was living on fumes. I call it my spiritual bank. You know, fumes is just the outside electricity that one person had. But what have I deposited into my spiritual bank lately so that I can feel value? And that still gets very hard. And I may be dealing with this till I die.
Yeah.
This is part of being my age, of being this far along. So believe me, it's so much better now. So much better. And there's no age, right or wrong age. I'm just saying that I do wish the young folks too would have the opportunity with the tools that are available now. A little bit, or we're helping the tools to be there.
For
to
other
come
trauma
out,
survivors.
so that you aren't spending the next 30 or 40 years, such as I did, in denial, or in denial at my discretion. You know, I would manipulate myself along the way, and but on the positive note, absolutely, I made a choice that the darkness cannot have me anymore unless I choose it to have me. I'm not a victim. I do have some choices to get up and a responsibility, and I try to turn that into a positive sense. For those that are not able to help themselves and are in that depressed mode that they can't get out of bed and things are just going to keep bad happening, please, whatever you do, whatever your means are, remember you're loved and you're needed, and the world is a better place with you in it. So if you got to hit 911, you got to hit 0. You got to call the Kelly Nicole Foundation.
Well, that's my cell phone, so just go easy there. I'll pick up the phone, but
we don't have a hotline yet, but
no, but we have crisis resources.
Yeah, we have
actually,
crisis.
You can say kellynicole.com/crisis.
Yep, there you go. You heard it first here. Kelly Nicole Foundation for kellynicolefoundation.crisis. Did I say that right?
kellynicolefoundation.org/crisis. We have some phone numbers there that
Absolutely.
people can call.
Yep.
And I remember one time when I was early on in this bullshit of Kel being gone, which will always be bullshit, but it just is what it is. You had lost someone the day before or that day or something, and you called me up one day and you said, I'm calling everybody who I know is on the edge and just saying, just hang in there.
Yeah.
And I was on your list of people that when you lost someone to suicide, you called me and said, you fucking hang in there now. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like,
I remember
it was early, so I was in the dark spot.
There was a point in time, I remember, if it's okay to say, when we got that pizza. We were hanging out and we were just dismantling the studio. And I got the pizza and you were in a really dark spot and you shared something with me and I was like, this is real. So I know I can relate. That's what I'm saying. There's a part of me that still feels like I'm in reality, not in reality. This is real. This is not real. I don't want this real.
Yeah.
Because this real sucks. But I was like, no, we got to keep going. You know, we just got to keep, eventually, if we can act as if, hopefully, and plus Kel would have gotten upset if we would have both joined up with her, Well,
I just picture, look at everything that she went through, and then if I couldn't make it a week in my personal hell,
right? Exactly.
Did I even deserve to hang out with someone as strong as her?
Hey man, if that's what it takes, right?
You just come up with ways to get through the next 10 minutes. Just come up with the rationalization to get through the next 5 minutes, and you don't know how your brain might be healing itself in the background.
Right.
Because it does. The body heals and dies off constantly, and I think that's got to include the soul.
Oh, yeah. Or something's going to eat away at it till it's...
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep replacing bits of it,
Right.
You can just hone in on what you got left, and try to capitalize on that.
Speaking of the studio... We're a music-based nonprofit, and we're inspired by this album, and we've made the movie about the making of the album and the origin of the foundation. You talked for a second about music as a healer. You're a musician. What has that concept meant to you in your life? And how do you look forward to enjoying your own creativity and the things that you're going to create between now and your last breath?
Well, first, whether it's the wind blowing through the air, the way the water, the waves crash against the bank of the ocean, I can hear music in almost everything. Most of all, it creates this frequency that I can surf, ride, swim on, and it brings me outside of my physical self. You got your, for me, my concepts are, you got your soul and you got your energies, however you want to juxtapose it. But then I've got it built into my physical self, and it vibrates against my skin, and it raises the fur in my ears up. It makes, and when one dances, one is truly free if you just let your body do what it wants to do, without thought or without somebody's looking at me or without anything. That was the first and foremost concept for me for music. And the second part about it was a way, if I could use that frequency. The name of the group I wanted to put together was called Tempt My Faith. And what that means is, let me tempt. I'm not here to point fingers. I'll let people much better suited point. What I was here to do was to spread hope and optimism. To create a frequency, a vibration where everybody in one room, tempt my faith, where I could tempt whatever faith you had put your heart into. Whatever your parents taught you, maybe it wasn't really agreeing with you if you grew up in a racist environment. You got to look at the people who that you love, your own parents taught you hate. Well, if you break a person down too quickly and too harshly, they could turn very angry and against and get very defensive. That confusion, that's where I mean confusion, the root of all evil. With music, I can let you do it on your terms. You can feel comfortable. And all of a sudden, you're looking at somebody you may not like, prejudge, and go, wow, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And then my lyrics can happen. Then you're open receptor where maybe you'll go, what's this guy saying? Wow. And that's what Sly Stone did for me. And so my music was sonic and visual and poetry, that I could use myself as a vessel. And if I can move your butt, clap your hands, then you would relax your guard, or maybe the lyrics can help you to stay strong, maybe come out. Maybe you might choose me or a band member or somebody at the merch booth you'll lock into and say, I'm really digging this vibe, which is what I'm hoping for the Kelly Nicole Foundation.
Thank you.
Is for people to feel comfortable enough, or maybe feel uncomfortable enough to want to feel comfortable,
Wow.
To get through that, to say, I'm going to take this one step. And maybe that person they'll meet you, or they'll meet me, or they'll meet some of the other staff, or somebody else involved, and go, I made the first choice between a right moment. I feel better, and that's music. It hits you before it's cognitive.
Oh yeah,
Way before. And it gets into, like, I always ask people, I kind of gauge people a little bit. I go, what's one song, no matter what mood you're in, always makes you feel better? You can't think about it. And mine was always I Want to Take You Higher by Sly Stone. I'd hear the gospel, and I'd hear that tambourine, and no matter what,
fucking keyboard.
I was in the Baptist, I felt like I was in the Baptist church in the South and just kicking it, and and always made me feel better. But sometimes, it's being human, music is a feeling, not a fashion. So unfortunately, because of other medias, it's become a fashion. But so as I would say, throw the peace sign up in the air, it'll do you no harm. Everybody seems to be looking around for approval, but it doesn't matter. You don't need anybody's approval. Just come get some love.
Get the music behind the mission. Hate Becoming by Kelly Nicole on iTunes and Spotify.
If you guys haven't checked out the merch table,
join the movement.
Buy the album.
Get your Kelly Nicole band merch and donate what you can at kellynicolefoundation.org.
Courage is from